Thank you for speaking with me. You had told me, you spoke with me right before you went to jail, and you told me when you got out, you would speak to me as well. So thank you.
Always.
Your sentence was 87 months, and you served just 12 weeks before Trump commuted your sentence. What was your first reaction?
I still don't have, Jody, a reaction. I'm still kind of in a state of almost shock. It still hasn't processed. I mean, I go from being in isolated segregation back to the camp, home, speaking to the president of the United States, all within a 5 day span. So it's definitely an adjustment, and I'm struggling to like make sense of anything. But it was I learned through the Chiron on TVs. No, it was a surprise. It was a wild story, from seeing the TV, calling my husband Matt, to him saying, "I just spoke to the president." I'm like, you spoke to the president, to "You're coming home. I'm on my way to pick you up." That happened within a span of 30 minutes. And I was home uh, early morning of, the 18th. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning, because the warden held me all the way until 11:30 at the facility, which whatever that reason was. And here I am. So it's quite,
You wrote a plea to President Trump a week ago
I did.
today, and
I
that was
did.
your last attempt. You wanted him to hear you.
I had seen the Newsmax interview with Rob Finnerty, and right after that aired, I was vortexed into the shoe, and I was kept in isolation. So I never had a way to react, and he had mentioned that nobody had come to him with it. So I figured I'll just make a direct plea myself, and I wrote that from inside the shoe and mailed it, and it went public. So it worked, to I guess show the president I was speaking to his actual direct question. I don't look, Jody, so many people came together, so many people helped, so many people worked hard. My husband was relentless. My best advocate was him and my sister, and my attorney, Joe Murray, who you know fairly well. You've spoken to Joe, you know how hard he works on this. So what I can say is very simple. I have a lot of people to thank. I'm humbled. I want to take this opportunity of this new start to go out there and do something meaningful, something grand. And when I say grand, it's not necessarily politics. It's really, I want to do something far more than politics. Actually, I have no desire to enter politics, at least not in the immediate future. It's now about purpose, and I want to use all that purpose to do something meaningful for society, prison reform, troubled youth, and all these other neglected areas of our society.
So when you say you want to get out, it's not going to be in politics. You say you want to start fresh. How do you start fresh without paying back these victims?
Look, I've been asked this question many times. I want to do what's required of me in the law. I don't know an answer to your question. I think it's a fair question to be imposed. And at the moment, I don't understand how that can work. But I can't say the file is he's in the shot. Is that do you want me to
Yeah, that's
start again?
okay.
Okay,
Oh.
I don't know how that would work, but I can say the following. A lot of people have this misleading impression that it's millions of dollars. That is not accurate. And a
And
lot
it's
of people
about
have,
374,000.
to which 85% of it was an investment in my campaign by the NRCC, the National Republican Congressional Committee, who I never even saw the money, and they never asked me for the money. The DOJ under Merrick Garland just really wanted to put it in there to inflate the numbers, to
I
make
mean,
it.
like the victims, like the elderly, who were caught up in it.
Look, I can sit here and rehash all of this about campaign donations. I don't know how this is going to change the past. Um, I, I want to talk future. I want to do the future. And I understand your question. As of right now, 4 days out of prison, I don't have an answer for you, Jody.
About prison, you know, were you in there expecting to spend 87 months?
Yes. The day before I was commuted, I went to confession. I went to mass, took communion, and I woke up feeling like, at peace almost with it. And I said, this is my life, and we're just gonna have to, adjust. It was a sombering, like, feeling, but also, I'm sorry, it was a sobering feeling, not somber, it was a sobering feeling that just peace entered my body in a very strange but profound way. And that very morning, I get, I guess, what would be the equivalent of a subpoena from Congress to go testify about my incarceration conditions. And so did the warden. Uh, and I thought that was already a great victory for change from within, that I was still effective and had a platform to do change from within prison walls. And that gave me so much hope. And I felt so renewed with that. And I was ready to rock and roll and do it. And then later that evening, I learned through the TV that I was going to be going home.
What does Santos 2.0 look like?
I don't know, but I know that it has purpose, and I want literally to reform the prison system. I want to help troubled youth. I want to show them, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not cheat, thou shalt not lie, because thou shalt end up in prison if you do so. And I think it's great to help these kids as a person who's lived all these as facts. I've stolen, I've cheated, I've lied, and I've gone to prison because of that. And I think it's very good to speak to youth so that they understand that that is not the path to walk on, and that it's important to use this newfound liberty. I can't change the beginning of my life, Jodi, but I can definitely now change the ending of the book of my life. And I think it's a very big opportunity that I was given by the grace of God, and thanks to President Trump's generosity. I can now go do something bigger with my life.
Did you, at the time, think that you would end up in jail? Or did you think, you know, maybe you'd fly under the radar?
Um, I I can't honestly answer that other than say I was so caught up in my own arrogance, my own blindness, my own, I guess, lust of insanity. I was chaotic. I was in a ball of chaos. I even granted, I'd admit my mental health state was quite shocking. I just did a radio hit on WABC with Sid Rosenberg, and he played a clip of me, a couple of months back, and I felt embarrassed at some of the things I was saying. I understand. A lot of people feel hurt by me. A lot of people feel, slide by me. So uh, the media is going to try to bait me into getting into a fight with some of my former colleagues, specifically on Long Island. Nick LaLota, Andrew Garbarino, Anthony D'Esposito. I don't blame them for being mad at me. I don't blame them. I've given them heartache. I've given them grief, and that's part of my healing process is accepting that they have a right to feel the way they feel because I let them down. I betrayed their trust, their friendship, and I have to reap the consequences. And perhaps
And
one day they'll.
also, you know, Robert Zimmerman, who lost. Do you have anything to say to them? You know, the four
Not
among them.
really. Look, this I'm never going to change. I won my election fair and square in the sense of the merits of the campaign message. I drove. Nobody. The one thing I'll say is my campaign message was stronger than his, right? And he decided to not sling mud. I didn't sling mud against Zimmerman, and he didn't sling mud against me. Although he could have, but he failed to do so because he failed to run an effective campaign. I ran a more effective campaign. I don't owe Robert Zimmerman an apology, but I do owe the third district of New York's constituents an apology, my voters, my
You know,
volunteers.
those who think that maybe the campaign was just, you know, based on lies. So you're
That
saying,
that would that wouldn't that look. Yes, there are people who believe that. My personal representation of myself, yes, 100%, they're right to believe that. But my political views and my political agenda and priorities, they never really changed. They were always the same campaign through how I voted in Congress and my dedication to want to advocate for conservative values for the third district of New York. That never really changed. But you're right. Yeah. If we're speaking personally, me, George Santos, and my personal misrepresentations of myself, they have every right to believe that way. Look, Jodi, who runs the Concerned Citizens of New York 3, I never met her. I don't hold any animosity towards her. She's expressing her First Amendment right, and she's damn good at it. Look, she worked hard. She got me kicked out of Congress with all her advocacy, and she did a great job on what she believed in, and
What
that's what
about
this
those
country.
people who were at your sentencing and wanted to see what they called justice served? Do you feel in
Look,
a way that it wasn't because your sentence was commuted, or do you feel like it should have been?
look, everybody deserves a second chance. I think I've always been a big believer of that. Redemption is part of the American societal story. It's a great lesson we teach kids, right? In our country. I don't want to get lost in the rhetoric of it all. I understand some people are really upset at me, and some people thought my sentence wasn't enough, So you're never going to be able to get a consensus on this. But I have the humility to turn and say to all those people, Democrat, Republican, I don't care. I mean, New York third congressional district residents, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I disappointed you. I'm sorry I misled you and misrepresented myself in the past. But I can guarantee you one thing. I will work very hard to earn your trust and to prove myself a redeemed and changed man. That's the
That
only
was my
thing I can do.
question. How will people know they could believe you now?
Measure me from my actions. Words are cheap. We've all learned that from politicians and public figures in the past. Just really measure my actions and just at least give me a shot. That's all I'm asking.
Prison, was there a meal that you was like tolerable?
There was two decent meals in prison. Um, Chicken patty sandwiches. Unfortunately, it sucks that at one point, one of the cases of the chicken patties were expired for over a year, but the excuse of the facility warden is it's frozen, so it doesn't go bad, it holds. It was a decent meal, but I was eating a year old expired chicken. And then on Thursday, and that was Tuesday's lunch at 10 a.m. And then on Thursday's lunch at 10 a.m., we actually got baked chicken quarters, thigh and leg. So those were the two only decent meals we had in prison. Everything else was like right out of the can of a Friskies cat food situation. It was rough.
And being in solitary, I mean, you're there with your thought. What was it like?
It was the most destructive mental health experience I've had. All the progress I've had in the past, and I've been a very open and outspoken person about my struggle with mental health in the past in my youth. I've always been very transparent about that. I believe in mental health being very important for a human being. My entire progress of decades of work was starting to fall apart and crumble. Jodi, if I want to be honest with you, I wrote three what I would consider suicide letters. I never acted on it. Um, it was tough. I explored ways to do it. I'm not a suicidal person, but I guess when you put somebody at the very limit, and they put me in the very limit. They didn't medicate me. I'm an ADD patient, and I've taken Vyvanse, Adderall for almost 2 decades, and the prison system wouldn't medicate me with that. So instead, they started shooting me up with antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications, which were giving me suicidal effects. But I couldn't say I was suicidal because then it would be worse for me. So the prison system is not designed to encourage people to be honest. It's designed to make people obfuscate and obscure their true issues because of the way they treat certain things. So if you're threatened or if you're sexually harassed and if you report it, they'll put you in protective custody, which is the SHU, in isolation. If you say you're having mental health challenges and you've had a thought of suicide, they'll put you in suicide watch in a white padded room, practically naked. So there's a demotivation and it's not incentivized to be honest in prison. And that's why we need to reform prison so people can truly be rehabilitated. And I think medical care in prison needs to be enhanced so that we can mentally treat people. Because remember, a lot of people commit crimes because they're struggling with mental health. I'm not saying all of them, but a lot do. And I do
This
believe that we need to
platform, you
improve that.
plan to make a difference. How do you plan on doing it? Just as
Look,
concise as possible.
as concise as possible. I've written it all while I was in solitary. We need medical reform in prison. We need rehabilitation reform in prison with programs, education. And we really need to have encouragement and not a system of angering inmates to make them more angry and come out and cause recidivism because they were
How
not.
do you in other words, how do you plan on getting your message out? Are you just going to stand outside on your stoop and just say, we need reform? Or you said you didn't want to pursue politics.
Well, so I spoke to the president about it, that I want to be involved. And when I say I don't want to pursue politics, I don't want to run for office. But that doesn't mean I can't go to DC and advocate for it. And hey, I have a great Rolodex. I speak to Republicans, Democrats. This is an issue Republicans have been weak on and Democrats have been strong on. So maybe I can get some bipartisan work to get these guys to work on true prison reform and hold corrupt and derelict in their duty wardens accountable, like Warden Kelly over at FCI Ferreton.
And what do you say to people who think your release undermined faith in the justice system?
Look, I think the following.
I'll add one more thing. I was looking on X this weekend. A lot of people, many people on X, when I was there, looking this weekend, were in favor of your sentence commuted, but there were many people who were very bitter, felt betrayed and outraged.
Look, rhetoric is at an all-time high in our country, and we need to temper it down. I understand that nobody's ever going to agree to anything, right? And I said this to Dana Bash yesterday on CNN, and I'll repeat it. Jesus Christ was crucified. The man was, as scripture tells you, as holy as it gets, and he still wasn't spared. So, and I'm not comparing myself to Jesus. I'm simply making an observation that there's never going to be consensus on anything in society, no matter if it's in the time of Christ or if it's in the age of President Donald Trump or even hence 100 years from now. This is just part of human nature, and there's not much we can do to control it. You're going to have critics, and all you have to do is just accept that they have the right to criticize you.
What are your plans in the foreseeable future? How are you spending your time now?
Right now, I'm doing all the press. I think the people want to hear, as you very passionately stated to me. And I just want to go ahead and take some time off after this week to just spend time with my family, decompress, and focus on myself, go back to seeing my doctors, work on my mental health, get back on my medications, and just do the right thing for myself.
Are you concerned about state charges at all?
Not that it's occurred in my head, no.
And what is the next step? You say you don't know, the details of restitution and fines. What's the next step? Are you planning to pursue it, or if they need to contact you, they will?
Like I said, I haven't, I wouldn't know the first thing about that. So it's too early to even have that discussion.
Anything else you want to add?
Um, Thank you for having me. Thank you for being a diligent reporter and always focusing on delivering the goods and the truth. Thank you.
Thank you.